second reading twice. The first time was to March 19th.
You can wrap up quickly, please.
I don't know that I can do it in 5 minutes.
Well, your 5 minutes is over. I'll give you 1 more minute.
Well, let me go to zoning.
No. At this point,
I'd like to show you the interrelation with the zoning and the land disturbance.
at this point, what you're talking to us about is items that are essentially on the
That's why I'd
agenda.
like to go to zoning.
And you have had the opportunity to tell us about the 2 main issues, both of which are extra-jurisdictional problems. I understand that there has been a
Yes,
meeting
they are.
between the city and the county. I would like to ask our advisor, attorney Chris Lieback, would you remind us of the jurisdiction of this body regarding the issues about enforcing agreements made within the county's planning and zoning system?
Yeah, real quick, just to clarify, just so we're all on the same page, the Planning Commission is just an advisory commission. Our duties, your duties are laid out under Section 94-150. So it's your body's goal and result just to make recommendations to the Board of Aldermen, specifically to issues that occurred outside the jurisdiction of the City of Branson. This board, the Planning Commission, and the City of Branson has no legal authority to regulate or enforce rules or laws outside of the territorial jurisdiction of the City of Branson. So although we may sympathize with Ms. Brewster and her struggles, those items are not within the confines of the city limits.
And therefore, we're...
Who's Ms. Brewster? Sherry Webster.
Oh, Webster, excuse me.
Well, let me ask you this. That property was annexed in May the 12th, 2020. It was zoned on July 28th and August 11th. And where is the rezoning hearing for it? Didn't come before your board, Mr. Davis. Why not? That's the zoning issue. Because the city violated state law and city code by not permitting a rezoning hearing, and by declaring that this annexation plan of intent was permissible for a voluntary zoning, and it is not. It is not. If you go and look at state code says that you have the job to do zoning. The city code in 94.7 says there are 3 ways you can zone it: general procedures, changes by the board, or groups or individuals. Every one of them. Planning Commission, Planning Commission, Planning Commission. And if
The Board of Aldermen is the authority for this city, not
Yes,
the
it
Planning
is.
Commission. Attorney Lieback, were the appropriate procedures and laws followed regarding the annexation of said property?
Yes, Chairperson, as we've
Was the commission, the Planning Commission, in error in this proceeding for the zoning, application and zoning of that property?
no.
Chairperson Davis? can I
No,
ask
you
a quick
weren't.
question?
You don't have the floor.
Sorry, sir.
You weren't in error. It was a standard voluntary zoning. It was the annexation, but the zoning that took place after property is annexed into the city, it has to go through the Planning Commission to be rezoned. What happened was it went to the Board of Aldermen for zoning, which violates the city code. Now, I did a very simple layman's search on the internet, Missouri annexation, and here we have from January 2020, the Missouri Municipal League defining the difference between an involuntary and a voluntary annexation, and there's 8 steps here for an involuntary annexation. The annexation went fine, but in the annexation, even an involuntary annexation, you have to go through the Planning Commission. The city code says that you, 94.7, you have to go through the Planning Commission. That didn't happen. And that's one of the other problems that we have with this project next door, is that we were denied our rights to have a zoning hearing. And at that zoning hearing, the 50-foot buffer that was defined in the county should have been incorporated into the rezoning. And it wasn't. It wasn't incorporated into the annexation agreement. The county didn't enforce it during the land disturbance process, and we were denied our planning commission hearing zoning before your board here, and that's problematic. That's one of the reasons we don't have it. And on top of that, once it came into the city zoned, when we complained to the city that even the city permit, land disturbance permit, which had the same SWIP in it, it was approved in July, that the city refused to enforce the SWIP, the sediment control plan requiring the basin. And we went before the Board of Aldermen on October 27th when the developer came and said, hey, I need a second resolution of support to MHDC to get some funding for this project, and I'll put in the filter basin if you give it to me. Well, the board gave them a second resolution, but then he didn't put in the filter basin.
Ma'am, that's all good information to have, but we have no jurisdiction to solve your problem, and we're not going to act on it tonight. So I'm going to ask you to have a seat, please.
The commission's duty is to
I'm going to ask
propose
you to have
code
a seat,
changes.
please. I'm going to ask you to have a seat, please. Now, staff, if you've taken some information from her presentation and would like to respond to it now or at a later date, I will listen to your recommendation. Joel or Chris?
I don't have anything to add at this point.
She brought up instances that their rights were denied because they didn't have an opportunity to come and speak at the zoning proceedings before the city of Branson.
Yeah, Chairperson, we've had multiple meetings on this. This isn't the first time this is brought before the city. There was an entire neighborhood meeting that occurred in our municipal courtroom. I want to say that was a few months ago. And I can't give a legal advice, but the commentary that we provided the property owners there with regards to surface waters, with regards to land disturbance, with regards to buffer zones, and all the other issues that they have brought to the city's attention is to seek legal counsel, because as a homeowners association, they have certain remedies that are available to them against the developer, because it sounds like a lot of the concerns are developer related. So we've gone over this. We continue to go over this. I don't know what else we can do. If there's further concerns, again, I strongly encourage them to seek legal counsel and get legal advice.
We believe that our process was appropriate.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. In that regard, then, we're going to move on to, does anyone else have an item to speak to that's not on the agenda? Okay. Then, come and, you can state your name and.
My name is John Cooney. I live at 114 Briarcliff Road.
Would you sign our little sheet?
Yes, I will, in Branson North. And the developer that clear-cut the property that these ladies were here talking about, which was a travesty in that it was not supposed to be clear-cut. He mowed down every tree. Now owns the 50-some-odd acres behind my subdivision and has gone in there and started to clear that land. And my question is, what are you going to do to protect my rights as a property owner so that they are not violated the way they were for Country Bluff Estates? And to tell me that I need to seek legal counsel because the city won't or cannot do their duty to protect your citizens is, so why are we allowing this developer to continue to disrupt land within the city of Branson when he is clearly in violation of federal, state, and local laws? That's my question for you. Why is this developer continuing to do business in our city?
The land that you're speaking of, is it in the city limits?
Yes, right across from Cedar Ridge.
Then he will follow city codes and it will be enforced.
Well, he didn't, and you did nothing about it.
Is that true?
That property has a land disturbance permit. Staff has been out there multiple times in response to complaints we've received. We've had code officers out there in response to citizen complaints, and everything that they witnessed on the property was within the allowances of that permit that they've been issued by the city.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry for being passionate about my hometown and my community. But I think when you tell people that the city, that the councils can't or won't do anything and to seek legal authority, or seek legal representation, I thought that's what we pay you for, is to protect our rights.
Well, first of all, sir, we don't get paid. We're volunteers.
Okay,
We also apply the laws to property owners as well as to people who live next door to the property owner.
Yes.
And what you're witnessing is orderly development within the guidelines of the city of Branson, which we will apply.
Have
Now,
you been by
the other
Country
issue-
Bluff Estates?
Pardon me?
Have you driven by Country Bluff Estates
Well,
and
that
seen
was
that
in-
blight?
That is true. That was developed in a situation where the county rules applied. We have no jurisdiction over what the county does.
But you annexed it.
We annexed it.
Okay. Well, I will learn more and get more information and promise to become more involved in the process.
That would be good, yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Now we're going to turn to the regular agenda. Chair would entertain a motion regarding the approval of the Planning Commission minutes for July 6, 2021 study session and regular meeting.
So moved.
Motion to approve. Romine, second. Richards?
Second.
Thank you. We'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Romine,
Yes.
Commissioner Stepp,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Howden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Yes.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
Yes.
Chairperson Davis,
Yes.
Alderwoman Denham.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you. Item number 2 now on our agenda is a request for municipal code amendments to Chapter 94 zoning. This is the item that was postponed from last meeting and has been modified by staff. Vice Chairman, I spoke to Vice Chairman O'Day, Chuck O'Day, who is unable to attend tonight. He was in charge of the meeting last month, and he also has worked with Joel in the preparation of these changes. He sends his support for the changes that he and staff have developed in this period of time and wanted me to relay that information to his fellow commissioners. Joel, would you like to take over, please?
Yes, before we get started, we did receive a letter addressed to each one of you. It was addressed to Branson City Hall, so we received it. So I'm going to pass those out right now. We have read one of the letters because in talking with Chairperson Davis, he asked that we open it. So I believe now is the appropriate time to hand this to you all.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, you may have the floor.
Thank you. I'm just curious, what is the usual protocol? Like, I see the postmark is dated July 22nd, and is it typical, like, that we would wait until a meeting if there's something that comes addressed? That's usually the way it's handled?
Yeah, that's a good question. If it's provided to the individual in an email form, that's something that can be forwarded securely by the staff and it's forwarded on. Since it's addressed individually to us, unless you were to check in early and ask if there was any mail for you, which is very rare, then you will receive it at the meeting. Or I suppose we could have delivered them at the pre-meeting. I didn't think about that.
Okay, thank you.
But yes.
Yeah, as the planning commissioners don't have mailboxes here at City Hall like our board members do, we don't have the luxury of placing in a mailbox, and as you said, coming by to pick them up at your convenience. So it was our first available time to see you all and meet you all,
And they were personally addressed, I'd like to add. It didn't say planning and zoning, it actually has your name, which,
Right, and staff did not receive a letter. Had staff received a letter, we would have been happy to scan it and distribute it to you all that way.
Thank you.
Joel, are you going to comment on the letter?
We believe that our presentation will address the comments.
I'll just make one brief comment on the letter. I've had a chance to read the letter, and it does deal with the two subjects that are near and dear to the hearts of the Country Bluff Estates residents. And one is regarding the issue of two-family homes on a single lot, in other words, single-family dwelling integrity, and the other one is regarding the pre-annexation Taney County process, and that we have struggled with for that process we've struggled with for years, and that's not a new issue for us, really. So go right ahead and begin your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, this is a request for municipal code amendments to Chapter 94 zoning. This was postponed from our July 6th meeting last month. And it's largely code changes that staff has come across over the past year. Since we've updated our codes over the last 5 years or so, as we work with citizens and we use the code, we work with the code, from time to time we notice opportunities to make the code more clear, more consistent, and just fix minor things to make our code better. They're not significant in nature. We've gone through all of these at the last meeting in July. We're happy to do so once again. I just want to simply mention that the changes that staff is proposing, there is an additional item on tonight's agenda that specifically addresses the concerns brought forth for the low-density residential district. There may have been some confusion if anybody was viewing the staff report or the proposed ordinance online, that it may have looked like that had fallen on deaf ears or that conversation was ignored. I want to reassure anybody listening or here tonight that that was not the case. That is a separate item. So the changes that are included tonight are just to carry us through to that item. And I also want to make note of the annexation item, as we talked about that quite a bit in the July meeting. We believe as a staff that the proposed change that was discussed during the last meeting is very much, and I will say a Band-Aid, I will use that word, but it's something that we can get into our code immediately to address making sure that no one can submit a permit or get approved for a permit prior to annexation. We believe there's definitely more conversation to be had on that topic. We look forward to that conversation. We enjoyed meeting with the Board of Aldermen and the County Commissioners yesterday here at City Hall, and there was about 4 or 5 to-do lists that we took away from that meeting that we'll be working on. But I believe there will be more to come on this topic, and so absolutely tonight is not an end-all, be-all for that topic.
Mr. Chairman, oops, excuse me.
Yes, Commissioner Ruth.
Before Mr. Hornicle goes on, regarding this letter, and I wanted to get it in, I did receive this letter via email on July 16th, and I forwarded to Mr. Hornicle, to Mayor Milton, and to Mr. Dobbins to please forward it on to the Planning Commission.
And if this letter is the exact same, that was forwarded on to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
All of the Planning Commissioners received that, if it's the exact same.
From Susie Sutherland?
Again, I didn't have the opportunity, there
Okay,
was no
thank
letter
you.
provided to us.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to get that.
It covers the same issues, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Woman.
So it was emailed ahead then.
Yeah, so apparently you did have that information ahead of time.
So with that being said, I really wanted to again highlight the annexation and the low-density residential topic. With that, we did ask for you all to provide any concerns or comments to us after the meeting, prior to tonight, so that we could pull those out, just as we did with the subsequent items on tonight's agenda. We only received comments from Alderwoman Denham, so therefore that's why we don't have any other items pulled out specifically on tonight's agenda. So with that, again, Mr. Chairperson, I'm happy to go through this information in more detail, or we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joel. Does the commission have any additional questions of Joel regarding the changes that have been made since last month's meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Alderwoman.
I have 3 different line items. Didn't know if you want me to go through the 3 or get them in order.
Are they pertaining to this particular, ultimately, resolution on Chapter 94
Yes,
for zoning?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, line 17.
Now, tell us where you are. Are you in the resolution?
So this would be
There we go.
Exhibit A of the resolution.
All right.
Yes, Exhibit A of the resolution, thank you. I just have a question on this one. Duplex is a well-known term. I just have the question, would it be more transparent to change the word two-unit to duplex so that there would be a broader understanding by our citizens and developers? Because that seems to be a question that comes up.
So our response to that would be two-unit. If you look across Chapter 94, is used more times than duplex. So in an act of trying to have consistency, we are recommending anywhere in Chapter 94 where it states duplex to make that change to two-unit. We also believe that's necessary because there is a definition for patio home, and I think the typical idea of a patio home and a duplex are very much the same structure type in a lot of people's mind. So we want to ensure that there's division between what a patio home is and what a two-unit single-family dwelling unit is, particularly to highlight in this specific definition under lines 17, 18, and 19 that it's a detached building used exclusively for residential purposes and designed for or occupied by 2 families living independently of each other. So that is a single building with 2 families in it, whereas a patio home is a single building, but there's, per the building code, a firewall that separates those spaces. So a patio home is different than what we're trying to define here as a two-unit. So again, it's just about consistency and trying to provide clarity between those 2 structure types.
And excuse me just a moment, and for point of clarification, this is in Chapter 94, Article 3, in case those are following along, right?
Sorry, Article 1 under 94-5.
Article 1 under 94-5. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My next is line 245, Article 3, Zone Districts, Section 94-24.
I'm sorry, what was the line number?
It is 245. Is where it begins. And per the Missouri Revised Statutes, the Branson Municipal Code, the Missouri Municipal League, and case law, a plan of intent is not used to zone property. So I'm requesting that this section of the amendment be pulled from tonight's vote for the purpose of further discussion. And the last item is line 372, section 94-38. And I am suggesting that the lot size minimum be changed from 5,000 square feet to 7,500 square feet, as it would preserve the integrity of the original size that was in place prior to its removal under the low-density residential zoning. Thank you.
Joel, do you want to speak regarding the annexation plan?
Yeah, so.
What the plan of intent language is here?
Absolutely. So going back to line 245, under, this would be section 94-34. So this is exactly to the point that I made earlier, that we added some cleanup here. You can see on line 247, whereas it just had the letter A for the agricultural designation, we added the word agricultural to be very clear what the intent for that base zoning would be. And then in line 248, removed annexation and added then in line 248 and 49 under an involuntary annexation. And exactly to Alderwoman Denham's point, that is what's laid out in state statute. And so we wanted to mimic what's in state statute and be very clear that when an involuntary annexation is taken on by the city, that plan of intent can be utilized as a mechanism for zoning. And then B, subsection of 9434, again, this was to address concerns brought forth that permits shall not be issued by the city until the annexation is complete. Again, we don't believe that, while we believe that this covers a lot of the concerns, we do appreciate there's more discussion to be had on this topic and look forward to additional code amendments in the future once those conversations progress.
So you believe, Joel, that this language in A and B, line 247 starting, line 250 starting B, is in compliance with state statute?
Yes, sir, and I believe it's a starting point in the conversation about annexation, and, think there's value in keeping it.
All right. Do you have a response,
Yes,
Alderwoman Denham?
yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. In the Missouri Municipal League, and I have the documentation, Missouri Municipal League facts, and I've made phone calls, and I've spoken with land use attorney. The plan of intent is for infrastructure. It can be used as proposed zoning, because as we had just mentioned before, we don't have jurisdiction when we're going through the annexation process, so we cannot zone during that time. There's case law on this that reverses the ordinance if a property is not zoned as required in revised statute Missouri 89.070, which says such commission, which means Planning and Zoning Commission, shall make a preliminary report and hold public hearings thereon before submitting its final report, and such legislative body, Board of Aldermen, shall not hold its public hearing or take action until it has received the final report of such commission. Branson Municipal Code, section number 94-7, A1, changes in the zoning district of a tract or parcel of land located in the city shall be made by ordinance by the board upon recommendation by the Planning Commission, provided such proposed change is first submitted to the Planning Commission for recommendation and its report. And in an effort to provide more information so that we are making the right decision and not going against state statute, Branson Municipal Code, and following case law, my suggestion is to remove this section so that there can be more discussion and documentation can be provided showing that this isn't, we don't zone property through a plan of intent.
That's not what this says. This says that you're going to zone it agricultural.
Yes, that's
Until
for
change.
voluntary. Involuntary is plan of intent. A plan of intent does not exist with voluntary.
Okay. So how much involuntary annexation have we done in the last 10 years, Joel?
Well, this was zoned, this property was zoned through a plan of intent in August of 2020. I was at that meeting and I did speak as a citizen for this. It was presented as a plan of intent after the property had already been voluntarily zoned for 2 months. The zoning was done under a plan of intent, and it is the incorrect way to zone a piece of property according to our regulations.
And this is where we may disagree.
Mr.
You want to
Chair-
speak to this, please?
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out a point of order for the chair. Under the Planning and Zoning Commission rules, Robert's rules apply. All I've heard so far is a suggestion. I haven't heard a motion to make any change with an accompanying second. So I just want to make that chair aware of that we're talking about something that is currently not on the floor before the board.
I'd like to make a motion to make this change to remove this for further discussion.
Chair would entertain Alderwoman Denham's motion to pull this item from the proposed code amendments before us.
And I think that's referring to the changes within lines 247 to lines 251,
Yes.
only the changes.
I'll second that, so we can have some more discussion on it.
There's been a second by Commissioner Stepp. Commissioners have any additional comments or questions regarding this? Commissioner Howden.
Joel, in reviewing the history of this, is it true to say that when this came under annexation plan of intent, that you had relayed to the Board of Aldermen that essentially not only was this rare, but perhaps the one and only time this had been used in your memory?
Yes, and for the record, I didn't make that presentation.
I understand. I didn't mean to say that. I'm just trying to say that's accurate to say that this is, in recent memory of city staff, this is seems like the one time this has been used, maybe in decades, or?
I've been here 12 years, and it was the one time it was used.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else have a question? I would make a comment. I think that we are incumbent to follow the guidance of our professional staff. I believe that Joel has properly communicated his awareness of additional work to be done in this particular item. I have spoken to prior Chairman Clark Harris, who was shepherding this committee at the time that these changes were made a number of years ago. This is not a condition that has led the city into any sort of significant problems for other annexations. This appears to be a unique situation of which many people are upset and wanting to change all the laws because of this one particular instance. And I think that it's extraordinary, and we should approve this resolution tonight, this amendment tonight, as staff is recommending. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to amend by pulling this line 247, 8, 9, 50, and 251 from the proposal before us tonight. We'll do a roll call vote on that.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to take a roll. Commissioner Romine,
No.
Commissioner Stepp,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
No.
Commissioner Howden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd,
No.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
Yes.
Chairperson Davis,
No.
Alderwoman Denham.
Yes.
It's a tie.
Chris, tell us what we do here.
In this context, the presiding officer under Robert's rules, which would be you, has the authority to break the tie.
You know my vote. No. Now, yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, my question is, even the way this followed through, this item is still up for an option to
Yeah, that was,
be changed and
This
further
was
anyway.
just the amendment.
absolutely. And, you know, this item before you all is a perfect example of what we continue to say, that code is never written in stone. We always have the opportunity to change code, just as we're exploring with you all this evening. So as the annexation conversation evolves, and as we, you know, determine more steps to take in this topic, you know, we'll definitely be back with you all again with additional changes.
Let me follow on that and say to this board that if you think that any of us sitting here are better equipped to write code than our paid officials, Joel Hornickel, Chris Lebeck, and his staff, you're in error. We need to listen to the professionals that guide us. And they are willing to make changes where changes are needed, and this is evidenced tonight. And so this body is not here to you know, on a whim, make changes that we perceive as being important for the long-term health of this community. Is there any other discussion on the topic before us? Item number 2, request for municipal code amendments to 94. Joel, do you have any other comments to make regarding this?
I simply will respond, since it was brought forward for discussion, line 372. This would be table 94-37.1 for the low-density residential dimensional standards. The comment was made about increasing the minimum lot area from 5,000 as it exists in code today, back to what it had been previously, which would be 7,500 square feet. What I would simply tell you is we utilized the guidance of the Community Plan 2030 when we did our code update, specifically in the land use chapter, in our preferred future, our desired future, on page 31 of the document. It specifically guides the community to create the low-density residential district, and it specifically states that this designation should include homes with densities between 0.5 and 6 units per acre. So these numbers in this table were not numbers just thought up one day by staff or the consultant. There was a lot of back work, a lot of discussions, a lot of information that was taken in to make these recommendations. The lot area, if you were to simply divide an acre of land by 6, it's roughly 7,200 some odd square feet. So if somebody were to perfectly divide an acre, it's more than the minimum lot size. The reason for the minimum lot size being lowered to the 5,000 square feet is to give those that have vacant land in our older neighborhoods, such as Lakewood Estates and Lucia Ridge and Cantwell Hills and Hiawatha Heights. There are lots, when those subdivisions were developed back in the 50s and 60s, that are 5,000 square feet or smaller. Under our code, if that minimum lot size were 7,500 square feet, they would be unable to develop those lots. They would be worthless pieces of land for those people. We, in fact, just worked with a community member in the last several months who owned one of these smaller lots. He had to go to the Board of Adjustment to request a variance just to build a single-family home on his vacant property. And the Board of Adjustment unanimously approved his request. So by simply lowering this minimum lot area or maintaining where it is today at 5,000 square feet, we are allowing people with land in Branson to develop. It does not allow somebody to just buy up a lot and ruin a neighborhood. That is not the goal. That's not the intent of the regulation. There are other safeguards in place in code, such as the minor subdivision process, which only allows someone to create a net result of +3 without having to come before you all and the board for a subdivision. There are setbacks. There are minimum lot width requirements. There are multiple areas in the code that prevent someone from, I think, doing the catastrophic subdivision of land in established neighborhoods that there's a concern in our community for. So our recommendation would be to not make any change to this table.
Thank you, Joel. That is well said. I live in one of those neighborhoods, and I do want my neighbors with small lots to be able to build. I don't want them to have to sell their lot or buy an adjacent lot or find that they can't do anything. In fact, 5,000 is probably too big. And I have neighbors who are building, rebuilding on a lot that's less than that. And so we have to think about all the neighborhoods in this city, and there are many of our old established neighborhoods where the lots originally were drawn up and they're very small. And we have to give them the flexibility to do so, and I believe these changes do that. Any other comments about this particular item? Joel, have you finished your report?
Yes.
Let's have a roll call vote regarding the Chapter 94 amendment issue, item number 2 on regular agenda. This is the overall amendment now. This is not the prior, and we did not have we had a motion and a second and a denial of Ruth Denham's amendment. So this is back to the original status of the amendment as proposed by staff.
So you need a motion.
Yes, we would need a motion second.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment as presented by staff.
There's no amendment on the floor currently. This is just the item
Oh.
before you. Yep.
Sorry.
Well, it's
I
called.
just
it's
want to be
called-
clear.
It's called an amendment. So your motion is to approve item number 2, request for municipal code amendments to Chapter 94 zoning.
Correct.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Romine, the motion. Any additional discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Commissioner Romine,
Yes.
Commissioner Stepp,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Howden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Yes.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
Yes.
Chairperson Davis,
Yes.
Alderwoman Denham.
No.
Vote is closed. Motion has carried.
Thank you. Jake, thank you. We're moving on to public hearings now. This is item number 3 on our agenda tonight, request for special use permit to operate a restaurant with a drive-through. You covered it in your 5 minutes that you. The applicant here is the city of Branson, and I thought you made all your presentations to us in your 5 minutes there. No, you were allowed more than 5 minutes. And come up and have 3 minutes.
Again, my name is Cherry Webster. I live at 118 Country Bluff Drive. With respect to 9434, I can understand, it sounds logical. You never had an annexation plan of intent before, and how you might want to leave the code as it is. But based on the experience that we have, a proposed change, I'd like to propose one change, and that would be as a property annexation application is prepared, that the city have some criteria and standards that the applicant would have to meet. For example, the gap that I was talking about between the first reading and the second reading and all the land disturbance goes on during the period of time when the property owner is still in the county. Well, when they come into the city, why not add a criteria that the property has to be inspected by the MS4 coordinator and that the property has to match the elements in the SWIP that was designed as part of the county land disturbance process? And if it doesn't match, then the developer would have to bring the property into compliance with that SWIP before the application process, that annexation application can be approved. Had that been done in 2020, had that code been in place last year in 2020, we would have had a filter basin. We wouldn't be having water pouring off
Ma'am,
of
we've
that
heard this
property.
before. Continue with your suggestions about
That
the
was my
process.
suggestion, and the reason for the suggestion is the example. We would have had our
Please
basin and
continue.
not be flooded.
Please continue. We're all aware of all
Okay,
this.
in addition to that, had that proposal been in place, the developer would have been using the storm detention pond on his own site, not on our lots. 17 months, he's been using Lot 34 and Lot 35 as his stormwater detention pond because the city did not have any criteria or standards that the developer had to meet before he was annexed in.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chairman, if you would just give us a moment, we're going to get our applicant on the phone for the meeting this evening.
Thank you.
And then, once we have her on the phone, staff will give our report, and she'll be available for any questions.
Did anyone else in the audience want to say something new that hasn't been spoken by
This is Carrie.
the group?
Carrie, if you'll just
Put
give
her
us
on
a
hold.
second, we're wrapping up our
Give you 2 minutes.
previous item.
You're just fine.
My name's Dwayne Stepp. I,
No relation.
no relation. I live at 151 South Drive. And I agree with Ruth. We should consider a much higher square footage rate when it comes to our homes and our low-density residential zoning at all. I agree that Kathy actually, stepped up and tried to help out Ruth. But, I mean, what I see from you guys is nothing but just a constant beratement of people with our ideas, with our considerations. So that's what I just wanted to say. I didn't quite understand why we want to just do it. And he tried to explain that we have littler lots and that some of our people in our community might have to purchase bigger lots. I get all of that. But in the end, so some of us also want those lots because we have other things like animals that run through our backyard. I can't tell you, pick up any Facebook page and you'll see, hey, Mom, I just got a deer running through my yard. And those are the little bitty slots of land that we buy this community for. And with these, and John earlier was mentioning about his property and how he didn't appreciate the land getting ripped apart like this. So I agree with that. It would actually put a bigger threshold on people and our developers that are coming back into our communities to actually do a consideration for other people that are out here who actually bought land out here just so we could have those pieces. That's it. It's my 2 minutes.
Thank you.
My name is Gail Westbrook. I live at 105 Country Bluff Court. First of all, I want to thank you for listening and taking the time and doing everything that you do to protect our interests, but I do believe that the single-family thing is a bigger issue, and with the proposal for the 7,500 square foot, I think is a very good thing. We have homes that have larger lots today in Country Bluff Estates, and then we have some vacant lots, and I'd certainly hate to see those get chopped up to be smaller lots, even though I know that we have a need for affordable housing and for smaller lots. I recognize that, and with the development next door, I realize that there is a definite need for that in our community, but I do think that that needs to take into consideration and that the larger lots should stay.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you. Again, thank you for your time.
You have 2 minutes.
Just one question. John Cooney, with the change to the zoning for my subdivision for a single-family residence, is that going to change to allow duplexes within my subdivision, which formerly was just single-family homes?
No.
Okay, so there will not be?
No.
Excellent. Thank you. My only question.
So that's actually a topic of our agenda item upcoming.
My name is Wayne Dixon. I live at 421 Loganberry Road in Country Bluff Estates. And I'm very much in agreement that the lots need to be bigger. I've lived there 20 years. I have very close to my home, which I've invested in, and it's my livelihood, 2 lots And if they were to be cut up, I mean, my value would go to nothing. And I'm very concerned about being able to, any way that they could come in, build duplexes or apartments or whatever in my subdivision. So, like I say, I'm very concerned about it. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. None of the changes that are proposed tonight would cause your lots to be cut up or multifamily apartments to be built into your subdivision. Joel? Let's hear from Ms. Carey.
Okay.
Item number 3 is a request for a special use permit to operate a restaurant with a drive-through within the property located at 1946 West 76 Country Boulevard in Branson, Missouri. We have the applicant on the phone. Welcome, Carrie.
Hello, Carrie Rovig with Jared Management.
Let us know about your project, please.
Chairperson, if it's all right.
Yes.
The staff would be happy to give the staff report on behalf of the applicant, and then
She can
the
talk.
applicant would be available for additional information and question.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So as stated, this is a request for a special use permit to operate a restaurant with a drive-through within the property located at 1946 West 76 Country Boulevard here in Branson. Again, we have the applicant, Carrie Rowick, on the phone, representing 1946 West 76 Country Boulevard LLC, the owner of the property. The current zoning of the property is entertainment, and the applicant's request is listed in the title is to operate a restaurant with a drive-through. Apologize for the outdated picture from Google Earth. Obviously, if you've driven past this property within the last several weeks, that building that you see in this image is no longer there. It's a vacant property ready to be developed. Next is a slide showing the vicinity map of the property outlined in purple, sitting on the south side of West 76 Country Boulevard, just to the east of the Walmart Price Chopper shopping area, if you're familiar. Next is a vicinity map showing the current zoning. Again, the property outlined here, this time in cyan. All the magenta or purple properties that you see are zoned entertainment. And then we do have a couple of planned developments, one on the north side of 76 and one on the south side. Those are the ones colored in cyan. Then looking at the existing use of the property, again, apologies for the outdated. On this vicinity map, the property is currently vacant as there's no use or building on the property. And you can see that largely the area includes commercial development, some lodging, and some vacant properties as well. We also always provide the orthometric views from all 4 directions if necessary during the presentation or discussion to reference. And then getting into the specifics of the request. It is for a new Starbucks restaurant proposed to be approximately 2,200 square feet on the property, which would have a drive-through window. While a restaurant use is an allowed use within the entertainment district, the component of having a drive-through window or drive-through components is what requires the special use permit before you all. Those components of the drive-through include the window, which is proposed to be located on the east side of the building, which happens to be in the side yard. The menu board and audible ordering devices are proposed to be located on the south side of the building or the rear of the building. And then the stacking lanes are accessed from the west side of the building and then wrap around the rear or south side of the building to the east or the side of the proposed building. The applicant on their site plan, which I'll get to here in a little bit, shows the 7 vehicles from the ordering device to the window, which is 1 more than what's required by code. And there's actually room for 9 vehicles plus within the property. So there's more than adequate stacking space for this proposed use. As a result, the applicant has successfully been able to address the requirements within Branson Municipal Code Section 94-87, and staff during the review noted no concern or anticipate any negative effect caused by any conflicts from this proposed use. One thing I want to note that we really appreciate the applicant's willingness to work with us on is the green space requirements within Branson Municipal Code Section 94-101, which requires any commercial property to provide 20% green space. This was an existing property that didn't have but maybe 5 or 10% green space. And so the applicant has been able to go in on their site plan and increase the amount of green space, which we obviously appreciate, and their willingness to address that code and to be able to do so successfully. So getting into the site plan itself, we've got kind of a blow up of the stacking area on the left side of the screen and an overall site plan there on the right half. Again, to orient you all, the front of the building is facing the top of the screen to the north. The rear is the bottom of the screen facing to the south. Again, you can see the stacking lanes starting on the west side or left side of the building, wrapping around the rear to the right side, and again, showing more than excess of the 6 required vehicles required by code. We also have included some elevations that have been provided by the applicant simply for reference. They really have no requirements per the special use for a drive-through window that speak to anything about the appearance or architecture of the building, but nevertheless, we wanted to provide them to you so you had that for reference. As a result of the information and staff's review, we do recommend approval of the request based on the following conditions. Number 1, that all construction and activities covered by the special use permit shall conform to all codes and ordinances of the city. And number 2, the proposed business shall apply for and receive a business license from the city of Branson prior to any business operations, and that license shall remain in good standing. And number 3, if all conditions of this resolution authorizing the issuance of this special use permit are not acted upon or before August 2nd, 2022, this special use permit shall be null and void. Mr. Chairman, that's the end of our presentation. Happy to answer any questions. And again, we do have our applicant with us this evening.
Thank you, Joel. Applicant Carey, have you seen the staff recommendations approval based upon the following conditions, and do you agree to them?
Yes, I don't see any problem in meeting any of those. I think actually with our contractual obligation with Starbucks is to deliver it, I believe, like in January, the shell. And we just finished up a project with them in Springfield, and they're pretty quick. So, and they, with a company the size of theirs, they do make sure, all of their licenses and things like that are adhered to and applied for and kept up. And then as far as the construction and activities, we have like our architect and engineer, and then we awarded the project to our general contractor who has all his business licenses and things like that. And so we've kind of got layers there to just make sure that we follow all the rules and things like that, because Starbucks, as much as anyone, is very, very scheduled in how they perform business operations even before they occupy a building. So
The August 2nd, 2022 doesn't worry you then?
nope, not at all. Because like I said, I think we, I know for sure that I think we have to, like I said, deliver it to them, if I recall correctly, in January. So,
Okay.
and that'll be the shell. So.
And Mr. Chairperson, just to clarify that condition, when we say acted upon, that always definitely means building permits, building inspections. As long as they're actively pursuing the use, they are definitely meeting that condition.
Not an occupancy permit
Correct.
necessarily. Does commissioners have any question of staff or the applicant regarding this request for a special use permit? Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion regarding this special use permit.
Mr. Chairperson, I didn't know if you want to ask any members of the public.
This is an applicant. The applicant is with us. Anyone here wanting to speak in favor of or in opposition to this special use permit tonight? Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion regarding this special use permit.
So moved.
Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Lloyd, motion to approve. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I'll go ahead and second that, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Howden seconded it. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Not taking the call. Commissioner Romine,
Yes.
Commissioner Stepp,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
No.
Commissioner Howden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Yes.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
Yes.
Chairperson Davis,
Yes.
Alderwoman Denham.
Yes.
Vote is closed. Motion has carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Jake?
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Carrie. Bring us some coffee. All right, moving on to item number 4. On the agenda tonight, this is a request for municipal code amendments, Chapter 94, regarding zoning pertaining specifically to the 2-unit single-family dwellings. And Joel, would you inform us again of what staff has done in the interim since the July meeting to address the concerns that were appropriately brought forth by Alderwoman Denham regarding this and the changes that are proposed to the code tonight?
Yes, absolutely. So this item is a direct result of our discussions during the July Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We felt that this item warranted to be pulled out of the larger package to isolate it and have further discussions. What is being proposed to you all this evening, and I will go through each one. I believe there's 3 changes being proposed. The first here under section 94-35 is to remove 2-unit single-family dwelling as an allowed use in the low-density residential district. So again, this is showing removal of that as an allowed use in the low-density residential district. The second proposed change is under section 94-38, which is the table 94-37.1, the low-density residential dimensional standards. We are proposing to remove all dimensional standards related to 2-unit single-family dwellings because we are proposing for the use to be removed from that district, so thus we don't need dimensional standards. And then the final proposed change is under section 94-68, the table of permitted uses, which is table 94-60.1, to remove 2-unit single-family as an allowed or permitted, thus the P, use under low-density residential. So again, these 3 changes would completely remove that opportunity from the low-density residential district. There was some discussion during last month's meeting about creating a separate zoning district to essentially address this concern. The Community Plan 2030, as I referenced in an earlier item, is very specific on the district lineup, and that was our basis for the districts we have. There was no mention of a single-family zoning district. It refers to it as low-density residential, so therefore that's why staff is proposing to maintain that district, make changes to it, as opposed to adding a new district. When looking at a comparison lineup of the former R1 district and the current low-density residential district, this was information included in our staff report that hopefully you all had a chance to review. When you compare the 2 next to each other, the only change, aside from plan development, signs, and accessory structures not being listed under low-density residential because those 3 components are not uses, they are handled separately in the code. The only other difference being that the 2-unit dwellings. So again, that's why instead of a completely new zoning district to address this concern, we're simply proposing and recommending that 2-unit single-family dwellings be removed as a use within the low-density residential. Staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joel. The city is the applicant for this proposal tonight. Do the commissioners have any questions of Joel at this time?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Alderwoman Denham?
Is there anything else, any other chapter in the Branson Municipal Code that may be affected by this change beside what we see presented to us tonight?
Again, good reason why we're maintaining the low-density residential designation, because if we were to change how that's named or how that's referred to or come up with a new district, there inevitably would be a ripple effect throughout the rest of the code. But this change this evening is very much just limited to 94.
Thank you. And then just a correction from the statement that you said there's just the two items for use were the only things that weren't changed, the 5,000 square feet and the 7,500 square feet. 7,500 was allowed prior, and that's been removed, that's been taken from this, so that is another correction that goes along with the two uses that were.
Those would be development standards or dimensional standards. So when I was doing a comparison, I was specifically talking about uses. I was not comparing the dimensional standards.
Okay, thank you.
Other commissioners? I would like to make a brief comment in that this particular situation has been in existence for some 6 years now, and we have not had a single occurrence, to my knowledge, of this occurring. And this actually, the strategy behind having two-family housing on a single lot is a very good planning strategy, to be honest. Suits many communities very well. It's happened in our community in older neighborhoods without it being publicized or worried about. And so it's not a terribly negative thing. You folks perceive it to be, but it isn't. It just doesn't fit preferences, really, right now. And I spoke to the former chairman, Clark Harris, who was in my position at the time that these codes were developed, and there was discussion about this item back then, and the intent was to allow greater flexibility for older neighborhoods and neighborhoods who have had lots that didn't develop to possibly develop. So the intent behind it wasn't to hurt people, it was to help development. It's unnecessary. None of it's happened. And former Chairperson Harris strongly recommended that it just be taken out. And that is what's before us tonight. So I think we would have his agreement if he were here to say something about that. Any other comments? Then Chair would entertain a motion regarding, excuse me. Do you folks want to comment? Please come up and you can have 3 minutes.
As stated earlier, my name is Gail Westbrook, live at 105 Country Bluff Court in Country Bluff Estates. I understand that you may think that this is a good thing, and you have every right to your opinion, as we do. And I think the single-family dwelling and the 7,500 square feet and the zoning thing is a personal choice. And some subdivisions want that development, but there's others that don't. And so therefore, I think that having this change is good, and I think that that low density needs to be a single-family dwelling of 7,500 square feet. That's my opinion. But respectfully, you have yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Other folks want to talk?
Again, my name is Cherry Webster. I live at 118 Country Bluff Drive. I have more of a procedural question. This is making a change to a lot of existing subdivisions, and there are only 2 subdivisions represented here in the public side, Branson North and Country Bluff Estates. And the only reason we're here to comment on the single family was because last month, with the omnibus agenda, we stumbled across it. We had come in July because of the annexation and the land disturbance component of the omnibus agenda. And so in scouring the appendix to find out what items we need to discuss, we stumbled across this single-family zoning. And so what kind of notification are all of the existing subdivision property owners getting? This is a public hearing, and yet we have a minute amount of public here. So how do you announce a public hearing? Is it just You put the agenda on your website and you leave the public up to their responsibility to go and look at it every month. We had that question last year when our community kept getting blindsided on the Fountains on Fall Creek development. And what happened was Melody Pettit started putting the Alderman agenda on nextdoor.com on Thursday nights or Friday mornings so that people were, you know, there was a trigger, there was like an alarm. Here, go look at it if you want. As it happened, we got blindsided several times because of the nebulous terminology. Like this one, back in July, it was described as relocating and matching building types. Well, it wasn't that. It was relocating the building types chart and then matching the zoning district to the building type. And you wouldn't know that by looking at the agenda. You wouldn't know that by looking at the staff report. You had to scour the Exhibit A. So after July, the July meeting, we tried to contact some other subdivisions to wake them up and say, do you know that the Planning Commission is trying to make changes to your existing subdivision? If you think you live in a single-family subdivision, you might be wrong. And so we tried hard, and yet here we are, Branson North and Country Bluff Estates. So I would think that if you're going to make major changes to the property rights of the residents, that there ought to be a better way to communicate these changes. I mean, why would you not, do you not have a point of contact with each different subdivision? I know when we got blindsided last August about the zoning hearing, in October, when the resolution for support came up for the developer, someone told Joel, hey, if you know anybody in Country Bluff, contact him and let him know that there's going to be an agenda item. And we greatly appreciated that. But here we are with a major change to property rights, and to me, there's not enough representation here. Thank you.
Anyone else? The zoning changed about 5 or 6 years ago in it brought in. And it was, yeah. Well, and in reality, it's had zero effect on your property values. It's had zero effect on all the reasons that you people are so afraid of tonight. Nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. No, it's not by chance. No, if it were intentional, someone would have already done it, wouldn't they? Just like. Well, that's as much of a hearsay opinion as the other side of it. So I disagree with you entirely. Thank you. Do you have anybody else that wants to speak regarding the issue? Okay. Commissioners?
And I'm new here, and so I want to be really careful not to be offending in any way to staff, because I've got a lot of experience of working with government staff in my life, and they're very hard workers and very dedicated people. I have no doubt Branson has some of the best in the country. I guess I'm a little bit uneasy with something that was brought up tonight, which is the lack of awareness that there does seem to be amongst the populace. And I hear you. I hear what you're saying. You're like, look, this is how it's been, and there haven't been problems in the past. But it doesn't mean that it couldn't happen tomorrow, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that it can't happen. And, you know, I guess I'm not opposed to what the city's trying to do necessarily, but I am a bit uncomfortable about voting it through, at least for me tonight being new. Maybe I can lean on that for a while yet, until I feel like there is maybe more of a concerted effort, similar to, say, the pet ordinance that was so controversial, right, by accident almost. And to be able to get the word out maybe to more property owners today who want to make sure that they're protecting that treasured investment of their land, and they're in their own little communities that they've chosen to live in. So I just wanted to explain for that reason, I'm gonna vote against it tonight, but I want to make sure it's not misconstrued in any way in that I'm, vehemently opposed. I just wish that there was a little bit more interaction and opportunity for the community to hear. So thank you for indulging me, sir.
Good points.
Thank you.
On the same token, our job is to represent all of the community.
Yep.
These folks have chosen to live in neighborhoods that have property owners associations. They have deed restrictions on their property. They have covenants. All of those things are there to protect them. The city is engaged in encouraging development of all types, not just the way they prefer to live. And so it offends me if they expect us to change the rules to not include my neighbors, the neighbors in Hiawatha Heights. We can't afford that sort of stuff.
I appreciate. If I can say one more thing, I'm actually a former home builder for 15 years. So I can totally see it from the perspective of a developer or a home builder. And also, my son just bought his very first house in Springfield, and we're really proud of him, and it's an older community, and some people want to do things like what we're talking about doing here tonight on their existing smaller lots. So I'm all about property rights and things like that too. So I see both sides really clearly. Both sides have really good points. I guess for my purposes tonight, I just don't feel great about enough of an understanding in the community about what it is that we're talking about. But I appreciate you very much and your willingness.
You wanted to say one more thing? Yes, Mr. Chairman. So we can hear you.
Branson North does not have a homeowners association. It was dissolved years ago, and it's a voluntary. So we are not legally represented, so we have to represent ourselves. So I just wanted to make that point.
Do you have covenants?
No. No, there are no covenants covering the properties. That's why we're here today, is that we have no one to represent it but ourselves. And I've worked 50 years in order to be able to purchase the property that I have, and I have to protect it because no one else does or will. So,
well said. Do we have a motion, Joel?
Not yet. I was simply just going to add to the record, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please do.
So I have the information, but I'm not going to go through it. I'm not going to spend more time on this topic. But the amount of outreach and notification and advertisement that city staff went through in both the Community Plan 2030 and the code updates from May of 2015 to May of 2017, I have that information to basically remind us, to remind you all of all the effort that was taken on to make the changes that are currently in code. As far as the item tonight, to make these remove these opportunities from our low-density residential district, we advertised in the paper, as we're required to do by our state statutes. There is no notification requirement to send out postcards to every resident of the community in state statutes, so we followed our responsibilities. In addition to that, it is posted on the website. We give the information to you all at least a week in advance, so it gives you all time to review, talk to constituents, ask us questions as need be, whereas the Board of Aldermen's requirement is only 24 hours. I think ours is as well, but we give that additional time for you all. And we're always open to have that conversation. Our PIO, she, in addition to posting on the website, she does post on social media. We shared the points that were made during the last meeting about putting this agenda as well on Nextdoor. I believe our PIO is working with the Assistant City Administrator on making sure that happens in the future. I'm unsure if it happened for this meeting or not, but given this change is reversal of existing code, and actually relaxing the code, that is why staff did not go through the amount of outreach that we did 5 years ago to get this code set. So we believe in presenting this tonight that there was not the need to have, I guess, the in-depth community interaction for this particular code change. We were simply following your all's guidance on making this change at this point.
Thank you for that explanation, Joel. And Ms. Webster, I agree with you. It's a shame that the community doesn't come out and participate. And, for folks that get for whatever reason, that you want to become part of the process, you got to show up. And people don't show up. And so it's amazing for this group to show up in order to do what is the best interest of the entire community. Well, you heard Joel, the efforts that are gone through.
Well, this meeting was not posted on Nextdoor that I saw. And I don't know who reads the paper. Sorry, but I don't read the paper. What paper?
This meeting occurs the same time every month.
I do.
So does the Board of Aldermen meeting. And I think a lot of your folks' level of concern, really needs to happen at the Board of Aldermen, which is the actual, or they are the authority. We're not. We're not the authority here. No, they do what they want to do.
Yes, sir.
That's true.
That's fact.
Alderwoman?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. As a concerned citizen, because I do have a background in planning, I would have thought I would have been notified too, and I do keep my eyes open, but I wasn't aware of it either in my neighborhood. I've been in my neighborhood for a long time, so I took it upon myself and I went door knocking, and none of my neighbors were aware of it, and they've been there a long time. And I talked to some people in Lake Taneycomo Acres, and they weren't aware of it either. And the comments I got were, a lot of comments were, I'm a professional, I'm a dentist. I don't focus on that unless I get something in the mail, or I'm retired, I'm out on my boat fishing. I don't go read the newspaper to try to find out if there's a meeting that affects me. And I believe that it's the local government's responsibility to make sure that we are transparent and that we do reach out to the community. So when I heard these responses of they weren't aware that their property rights literally had been taken from them, it became a huge concern. And that's just citywide to me. Yes, and in Branson North, only because I have some friends there. They're not in my ward, but I have some friends there. And they also had concerns that they weren't aware. And so just to be fair, a lot of people did not hear about it, and a lot of people did not participate, and they have invested in their homes, they've invested in the city. They're taxpayers, and they do care. Their life isn't local government. They have other things that they do, and they go to work, and they do things that everyone else does, and they were unaware. So bringing this to light, I think, is a good idea to be fair to our community. I agree with Commissioner Stepp that it would be a good idea to do a better outreach so that we could get feedback, a wide variety of feedback, to be fair to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I think at this point, I'm ready to entertain a motion regarding this motion that we've belabored. I'd like to hear a motion requesting approval for municipal code amendments to Chapter 94, zoning pertaining to two-unit single-family dwellings.
So motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any additional comments? Roll call, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Commissioner Romine?
Yes.
Commissioner Stepp?
No.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Commissioner Howden?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes.
Commissioner LeBlanc?
Yes.
Chairperson Davis?
Yes.
Alderwoman Denham?
No.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, Jake. That concludes the list of items on our agenda tonight. Joel, do you have any further reports to make?
I don't, but I believe Attorney Liebeck has something he wants to say.
Yeah, Mr. Chairperson, I just want to make a correction for the record. On the amendment that was made on item 2 by Alderwoman Denham, the vote on that was a tie. When there's a tie under Robert's rules on a motion to amend, it fails. So the decision as to whether or not you needed to vote to make or break the tie was unnecessary. So I just want to clarify that for the record, so there's no confusion or misunderstanding so everybody's on the same page. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I will, sorry. If I can, I'd let everybody know we do have a couple of items we're working on for next month. So we'll have those to you at normal timing and look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second? Those in favor? Stand up and leave. We need a roll call.
I don't know what happened last meeting because I wasn't there, but it's been a kind of couple little heady